Hello everyone, my name is Lori Miller, and today I would like to talk about ending restraints for the elderly. As more people live longer, care at the end of life has become an important issue in our society. Many elderly people have diminished physical capacities, which means they will need care either at home or in a nursing home. Unfortunately, their condition makes them open to harm, either through neglect, inadequate care, or worse, because relatives or people in authority take advantage of them. We all ought to be treated with dignity in our old age, but in reality, this is not what happens. Too many times the elderly live out their lives in unpleasant, dangerous, or even exploitive conditions. I want today to look at some of these conditions that concern me greatly. The use of restraints on the elderly. I can't think of a worse way to spend the end of life being strapped to a bed. Elder abuse is becoming a big problem in society. We can define it as, according to the National Care on Elder Abuse, existing studies show that between 7.6 and 10% of all elders reported abuse in the past year, and this trend seems to be growing. Like other forms of abuse, it can be hard to see exactly how much abuse is really going on. People do not always report abuse out of shame or fear, and elders are no different. In addition, a good deal of abuse happens with Alzheimer's patients or patients with other sorts of dementias. While a good deal of elder abuse occurs in the home by family members where people are not trained and often find care stressful or in financial troubles. Abuse, however, also occurs in nursing homes. One survey by the National Center shows 44% of all residents reported neglect of mistreatment and 95% seeing others maltreated. These include, for example, pushing or shoving the elderly or ignoring and neglecting their needs. And many state inspection policies are not adequate. The same report states that 70% of these inspections miss one or more violation. The decision to send one's parent to a nursing home can be very hard. You put your parent in the care of another who you don't know and in an institutional setting that may not be exactly what you hoped. Financial limitations may give you few choices. Quality assisted care is very expensive. Your parents leave their home, which, whatever its shortcomings, still provides them with a sense of security, safety, and familiarity. Sometimes, however, there is no choice. A parent can no longer take care of themselves, and the child or other caregiver is either not available or cannot provide the proper care. Shouldn't we guarantee that our parents get the best care possible? Sometimes assisted living can satisfy the needs of the elderly. Others, however, have more serious problems. Some, because of dementia or stroke, have limited mental capacities, and other little or no mobility. The problems for abuse is even greater under these conditions. A GAO report on the problem in 2002 noted, "Our work shows that nursing home residents need both stronger and more immediate protections." More should be done to protect nursing home residents. For example, as Alzheimer's progresses, a number of those with the disease become angry, agitated, and aggressive. They may even strike out at people and call them names. They may become very belligerent and very hard to handle. Often such patients are put in restraints. I think this practice, which is widespread, needs to be changed. It is inhumane and should be eliminated, or used for a short time only in extreme conditions. The use of restraints are mostly for the convenience of staff who cannot be bothered to access the needs of patients or are too understaffed to deal with it. For the patient with restraints are harmful. They can cause injury to the patient and bed sores and the ability to move. They can weaken instead of helping them. It is bad for mental health as well. It leads to a sense of helplessness and mental decline. Even if people are limited, they still need to feel some sense of personal control and direction. Restraints take this away. A friend of mine told me a story of his uncle who had moderate Alzheimer's and then he had a stroke. While he was pretty active before the stroke, he still played golf and did yard work. After the stroke, he was weakened and lost a lot of his ability to communicate. His wife was not physically strong enough to take care of him and could not afford a full-time care. A nursing home was the only alternative. However, finding a good home was a problem. After a couple of weeks in a hospital, she was told he had to leave. He could go to a home or he could go home or to a nursing home, but there were only a couple of places open. She could put him in a place near home, which was not very good, and had already been closed once or twice. Or there was one on the other side of Rochester, which was almost an hour drive. She felt she was not up to the drive and was forced to choose the closer one. Even if it was a bad choice, she was forced into it. Because her husband was disruptive, he was strapped down and heavily sedated. Even though his wife came to stay with him for hours, almost every day did laundry, brought him food, and still cared for him all day. When she was not there, he was basically ignored unless he needed more sedation. I am not sure you could call this living. It is really an institutionalized form of elder abuse. It neglects the needs and health of those who are restrained. While my friend's experience might be an extreme case, restraints are still used in nursing homes for several purposes. They keep patients who are disruptive from acting out. They restrain people who the staff fear might be wandering around, and they are used on those who think they might be in danger of falls or injury. Although the use of restraints has declined with increased awareness, restraint is still used. Where it is used regularly, according to Lois Evans and Valerie Cotter, it tends to become a standard practice. At least 5% of all elderly patients, a figure which includes many fairly healthy elders in homes, are restrained on a daily basis, and others are restrained on occasion. Overall, however, such restraints do not benefit health. In fact, it is now thought that restraint usage has been recognized as significantly contributing to the deterioration of a resident's physical and mental status. Patients, and especially patients with dementia, they tend to make patients weaker and less able to walk after extended restraint. Further heart and lung health are negatively impacted. They are more likely to get infections and pressure sores and bed sores. Mental health goes down too. Withdrawal and depression are common. Staff at nursing homes that use restraints are part of the problem. They often find the attempt to use methods without a restraint a burden and a challenge. In fact, restraints serve the needs of caregivers more than the patients. It gives them a sense of structure and order, which they do not want to give up. But the assumption that patients in homes need restraint often goes hand in hand with the idea that they are infants who need care and not adults. It establishes a power relationship between the patient and the caregiver, where the patient has a second-class role. All patients have the right to be free from restraint or seclusion of any form imposed as a means of discipline, convenience, or retaliation by staff. Restraint or seclusion may only be imposed to ensure the immediate physical safety of the patient. A staff member or others must be discontinued at the earliest possible time. These regulations are not always enforced or employed. Many times there is a lack of attention to the needs of patients. There is especially true of dementia and Alzheimer's patients who are at high risk of being restrained. They have difficulty expressing their needs verbally and often seem agitated. However, Evans and Cotter note that such agitation may be the result of several factors. The new setting of a home may be unfamiliar and disorienting to them, as well as moving from different settings like a hospital to a home can cause problems. Patients with Alzheimer's are at high risk of developing delusions and delirium. However, treating these with restraints often is ineffective. Delirium, so not always primary symptom of Alzheimer's, it is often an indicator of another underlying problem, such as worsening heart disease or things like drug interactions, dehydration or electrolyte balance, pain or infection. This can even happen in patients who do not have Alzheimer's. For example, urinary tract infections are often a cause of confusion, as are medications in the elderly. Some antidepressants, instead of helping the elderly, make their condition worse, and care has to be taken. Many times, finding the underlying causes of delusion can reduce or eliminate them. It entails, however, a good deal of monitoring to find and treat these symptoms. So let's think about some solutions. There are a number of ways the health providers can address the issues of at-risk seniors to avoid the use of restraints. The first is a strong fall prevention program. This is not a program meant to avoid all falls, but the kind of falls that cause injury. There are a lot of things that can be done to address the risk of falls. One important element is physical therapy, including weight-bearing exercise to increase strength and improve balance. Any improvement in fitness will increase balance and movement. Other things include effectiveness, use of walkers, and canes. Alzheimer's patients can benefit from care that focuses on their needs by the use of music and photographs, which make patients comfortable, and the scheduling of activities in the morning when mental functioning is higher. It is often important to pay attention to activities in the later afternoon when energy is flagging, and to be attentive to the problems caused by changing shifts in the afternoon when they may not recognize the new shift. Frequent visits by family, if possible, provide a sense of familiarity. With Alzheimer's and dementia patients who do not communicate their needs as well, it is important to sensitize staff to alternative ways of determining the feelings and needs of these patients. Things as simple as facial expression, posture, and attitude can indicate unmet needs or changes in condition. Staff, however, has to take seriously the situation of the patient and not see them as just an empty shell, but paying attention to these things can increase the feeling of well-being of a patient. A related approach stresses the need for individualized assessment of all patients, but especially those with dementia. An individualized approach means that specific treatment plan is formulated for each patient or nursing home resident based on their specific abilities and limitations and any specific diseases or conditions they may have. A one-size-fits-all approach used by some nursing homes is good mainly for the staff by keeping things easy and manageable, but does not benefit the resident. While scientists have looked at the physical effects of restraints, less work has been done on the psychological, even moral elements of treatment. While there are some patients who feel safer with restraints, since it gives them security, the vast majority view it negatively. It is seen more as traumatic than therapeutic. Commonly, patients feel a loss of dignity and self-respect. They feel their identity is taken from them, and they feel anxious and sometimes aggressive. Isolated and depressed, some say they feel like a bird in a cage. These reports come from those who can communicate well, so you can imagine how much worse it is for those who have dementia or other problems. Clinical ethicists have begun to look at these issues. They stress that treatment has to be based not just on medical judgments, but on moral values too. And physical security are not the only values. Elderly people have to be treated as a person who should be treated with dignity. Being a person embodies human dignity. This dignity is grounded in the fact that everyone is a unique individual who becomes more and more human by contact with others. Thus, taking part in society as a whole, human dignity cannot be relinquished, not even through illness, handicap, or approaching death. The second value they know is that our freedom, or we consider people free because they make their own choices, be responsible for their actions, have their own beliefs, you find meaningful. Even for those who have real impairments, we have to apply these principles as much as we can. In our capacity as people whose parents may someday find themselves in nursing homes, we have to be on guard to see that the freedom and dignity of our parents are respected and that they are not treated like infants or bothersome children. And we have to insist that they receive the best quality physical treatment. For those whose patients will have dementia, this is even more important. They have to insist on careful, individualized assessment and greater attention or determining the needs of their parents. Thank you.
Yay!
All right.
All right, I'm sitting down.
Okay.
My neck is killing me.
I want to see the video.
Mom, you're